Welcome folks to another Unreal tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be exploring how to play around with some of the lighting and also the sky primarily in Unreal Engine, how to create a night sky and just have a little bit more control with your environment and the kind of dramatic lighting that you perhaps want to create. So I've pre-prepared a little sort of environment here, and I've played around with the sky settings and also got some stars in there as well. And we're just going to have a look. I've taken out a couple of the walls in the scene here just so you can see what's going on. So I've taken the sun out, or at least I've rotated it below. I've changed the opacity and the colour of the clouds. I've also changed the speed of the cloud so they're zipping by a lot quicker. Played around with the horizon as well, the colour of that. And also I've just added some other lighting in here, and I've covered emissive lighting before in previous tutorials, so you can have a look at that at your leisure. And also playing around with point lighting as well, so I've got some kind of green lighting going on here and some pink lighting and a bit of blue lighting as well. This is mainly just to kind of just create a bit of contrast, but also, in terms of, and something we will perhaps cover at a later date, is just looking at sort of creating terrains and things like that, and having something, with a bit of sort of a bit of drama or a bit more kind of just a bit more control at the end of the day. So how did we get here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit this. And I'm going to create another level. So at this point I'm just going to pause the video and I'm going to open up a fresh project, and then we'll go through it together, shall we? Okay, here we go. So as you can see, I've created up a new project. You want to be selecting third person, and then you want to give your project a name. Always remember to put the underscore in there, as Unreal doesn't like gaps, and then go create project, and voila, we have the level open. So here we are. So it's a standard thing, so you should be seeing this. If not, then perhaps just go to file and go to new project, and you want to go to third person. But anyway, without further ado, let's get cracking. First of all, I'm going to take these walls away. I'm just going to click them, hit delete, just so we can kind of get like a very broad view of the vista. So at the moment, if I just go and hit play, and F11, so you can see there it's standard sky, and we've got a bit of sort of, cloud, and we've got some sort of mist, and so we're going to change all of this, and we're going to, can we see the sun? There we are. So we can see the sun there at the top. So we're going to change all this around, and we're going to turn it into a moody nighttime scene. Okay, hit escape. And we're going to do a bunch of things. So first thing we're going to do is, I'm just going to rotate this around. So first thing we're going to do is going to click on the sun symbol here. Just hit F11. Click on the sun symbol, and you'll see on the right hand side here, the just beneath the world outliner and details and transform, we've got light. Okay. And this is, well, we're going to start kind of playing around with this shortly, but first of all we need to rotate the sun. So I'm just going to expand these a little bit. So I want you to hit the E key, and then what we're going to do is we're going to click and hold on this here, and we're going to move it all the way 90 degrees. There we go. Right. Now you may see that the sun, if I can just do that, where are we? So yeah, so the sun's still there, right? So it's moved, but it's still there. It's not a problem. You just need to refresh it. That's all. So just going to hit F. So how we do that is we click on the sky, and then just increase it there. Then we go refresh material. There we go. You can see there now the sun by rights should be out of the sky. There we go. And it's probably located somewhere below now. Let's have a look. There we are. Yep, so you can see that. So there we are. So that's stage 1 out of the way. Just gonna hit, So the next stage is we need to be looking at changing the sky, because we've still got some things going on. It's still quite light, so we need to do something about that, and that's going to be the next stage of this video. So staying with the night sky, or the kind of, it looks more like dusk, we're going to come over here to some of the settings. And we can see here we've got sun height. Now we've already kind of played around with that. We've got cloud speed, cloud opacity, stars. We'll come back to that, but these are the bits we need to be concerned with. Zenith color. So what we need to be doing is we need to be looking at changing these colors to get the desired effect. So I'm just going to take a bit of a moment just to have a play around. Okay, so zenith color. Horizon color. And we've got cloud color, and then we've got overall color. Now the overall color at the moment is set to be quite bright. Let's first start by playing around with this. So I'm going to click on the overall color, double click on it. You can see there it's set to be quite light. Now this is the kind of like just a default kind of setting. However, if I start playing around with these values here, bringing those down, clicking OK, you can see that nothing's happening. It's like, oh, hold on a minute, why am I not seeing any kind of change, right? So this is going to be the first hurdle that you see. It's like, hold on a minute, I've changed the sun, I've changed the colour, why isn't it changing? Well, that's because we need to uncheck this box here, colours determined by some position. So I'm going to click on that, and hey presto, we've got, well, certainly more of a kind of very late evening, dusk kind of look. And then we can start having some fun. So, first of all, let's just have a look at the sort of colours. So we've got the zenith colour. So if you click on that, you can see if we play around with some of the values here, you can see it's a little bit sort of subtle. I'm just going to try and just rotate that up. There we go. So you can see there, if I just play around with that, and this is really where you need to do a bit of experimenting. So again, you can either play around with that, or you can sort of move this around. Now I'm going to sort of go for a kind of very kind of pale kind of blue colour. I'm also going to certainly darken the sky because I want the sort of stars to sort of shine through. So that's the first stage of that. Yep. Horizon colour, we can click on that, and again, or double click, sorry, and again we can sort of play around with some of the settings on there, like so. But again, you know, best thing to do is experiment, right? Experiment with some of these settings, get the settings that you can happy with, and click OK. Now you can also, there's a drop-down menu for all of them as well, RGB. So it doesn't mean you can't stop playing around. It just, you've got your overall setting. But if you wanted to emphasize some of the reds, the greens, and the blues, you can sort of do that as well. Certainly with things like this, with the zenith color, and also the horizon color as well. So you know whether or not you want to sort of go for something a little bit different. Now, on the video that I showed at the beginning, I tended to kind of zero these out. So you can follow that if you like, or just sort of stick with the ones that you want. But generally speaking, with things like with the zenith, I'm going to zero all of these things out. I want more of a kind of neutral color. I'm going to leave A, and same thing with the horizon line. I'm just going to zero these out. Yeah, so I've got more of a kind of neutral. Now it doesn't mean you can't then sort of add into it. So you could sort of say, okay, I want a bit more of a kind of blue on the horizon. You can see there that kind of change. Of course, go for it. You know, I'm just going to leave it for the time being though, because I want those are kind of changes that if I was doing this as a level, I'd really want to be tweaking those. I want to kind of get the overall value. So a bit like, you know, some of the drawing tutorials that I've done, particularly looking at values, you know, looking at blacks and whites, you know, greys. This is kind of in that territory. You know, you want to be using broad brush strokes, so to speak, and then you want to start kind of playing around with some of the kind of subtleties. Okay, so we've dealt with zenith color, horizon color, cloud color. Again, we can kind of have a look at that. And if you want to kind of give that a bit more of a kind of a hue, or darken them, you can do that. We can also actually play around with, if we go back up to the top here, to do with cloud opacity. So if I just hover my mouse over here, you can actually increase that or decrease it. Now, because this is a kind of nighttime thing, probably want to, you know, it wants to be slightly kind of translucent, so we don't want it too opaque. So maybe something like that. And then we've got star brightness. So again, at the moment it's sort of quite weak, but if I just hover my mouse over here, click and increase, we can see nothing happening. Why is that? Well, it probably means either one of two things. Either you need to refresh, which is this button here, yep, or you have to really increase. At the moment it might look like a lot, but if you click and drag and hold and move it along, you see, yeah, there we go. You can see it just starting to kind of peek out. So, and that's at about, what's that? Yeah, the numbers are greatly increased. So just check, refresh material, and if not, you want to be increasing the numbers, ideally to something like that. Not too bright though. Remember, it's a night sky. You don't want it like that, right? It looks like we just got into hyperspeed, right? You want to have a kind of subtlety there. You got this night sky. Okay, so we're in good shape. So when it comes to, again, putting some of these, you know, doing a bit of sort of tweaking, then of course, you know, you can do just things like, you know, whether or not you want to play around with, say, the overall color, you know, add a kind of like an orangey kind of dusky feel to it by all means, or maybe like a blue. You see there, and the kind of cut the overall color. And things like the cloud color as well. You might want to play around with that. Maybe have some kind of purpley color or something like that. Something, you know, make it look slightly kind of more ethereal. let's say something like, I don't know, purpley blue. And then you can sort of go back to, if you go back to the top here, then you can play around with opacity. So again, you can make those clouds a little bit brighter. So it's a kind of a bit of back and forth, just really finding a kind of happy medium in what you're trying to achieve. And the same with things like the zenith color. Again, you know, you can sort of play around with some of that. Add some colours there. I'll just cancel that. And with the horizon as well. So this kind of concerning this area here. And you know, you could sort of maybe have something like a sort of pink colour there, and then just start to kind of change that. So you can see it's very kind of subtle kind of shading. But again, you know, just use sparingly. Don't go too over the top. And of course, on the left here, you can play around with some of these settings here. You know, you can increase the reds on that, increase the greens, and you can, you know, mess around with the hue, which is essentially it's changing it to, you know, increasing the greens, the reds, the blues, things like that. And you could also take down saturation if you want. So, you know, again, a bit more neutral. But again, you could probably take care of that by zeroing it out, right? So at the moment that's 0.484. So again, you know, those are those settings there. So again, you can leave that, you know, to your own discretion, so to speak. And that's pretty much it for the sky. We've taken care of the sun. We've created the night sky. One last thing is, I've not touched on is played around with the cloud opacity, but the cloud speed. Now at the moment, I'll just take up the cloud opacity just so you can see it. Cloud speed at the moment is fairly kind of, it's almost like a sort of gentle evening. If you wanted something a little bit more dramatic, click and hold with your mouse. Sorry, wrong one. Click and hold with your mouse. Take that forward, and all of a sudden it's changed. There you go. So it's almost like time lapse. That's pretty cool. Looks a bit weird though for a game, depending on kind of what you're going for. I'll probably just take that down to something a bit more subtle. Yeah, have a bit of movement, but you don't want it to be too quick. Right, so I think that's touching on everything to do with the sky. We've got the stars. The last thing is really with the scene itself. So if I just click on one of the objects in there, hit F, bring us down to this level. So we've kind of got that sorted. So yeah, so when it comes to lighting a scene and certainly lighting the character, again, I've touched on this in previous videos. Before we kind of go forward as well, you may see this preview. Why is it showing preview on everything? Reason is that we have to basically build the lighting, because we've quite dramatically changed the lighting on this, so we need to change it. So we don't need to build everything in here, we just need to go to build and then build lighting only. So click on that, and once I've done that, it will get rid of preview and everything will be hunky-dory. So I'll just wait for it to do its thing. There we are. It's got rid of preview, but also it's got rid of the residual lighting, of course, because we've dramatically changed everything. Yeah. So this is where we need to start dragging in our lighting, and that's going to be the next point of this video. So, lights. Let there be light. So at the moment, our character's in darkness and our environment's in darkness. The sky's looking beautiful, and that's all looking very nice, but we've kind of got not much going on in our scene. So easily solved. I'm going to click on, probably going to use a point light for all of this. I'm going to click on a point light. I'm just going to drag it into the scene there, like so. W key, and I'm just going to raise that up. Now, at the moment, if you look on the right here, we've got our light. However, it's like we have to kind of move it quite near, and then as we move it away, let's say we want to kind of light a bigger area. As we kind of move it away, it takes the kind of light with it. So this is this thing to do with the attenuation radius, which we're going to come to, and also intensity. Now we can play around with intensity. Excuse me. So you can see here, if I just click my mouse on there, I can certainly increase that. So as I bring it up, it can be lighting more of the scene. So that's certainly one way to achieve our desired results. But also the attenuation radius is a good way of just basically playing around with the influence of the light. So instead of kind of like trying to, like, you know, max out on the intensity and sort of go for that, the attenuation radius will enable us to create more of an even kind of bit of lighting. So we don't need to really, you know, max out with the intensity on that. So what we're going to do now is so now we know how to do that, I'm going to basically start really lighting the scene. And I know there's been quite a few students who have been asking about this. I'll probably do more of a sort of dedicated video on how to kind of light scenes, in particular for games, and you know, just looking at things like key lighting and, you know, backlighting and that kind of thing. So with this though, just to kind of jazz it up a little bit, instead of kind of having the white, we're going to look at something perhaps a bit more like a contrasting colour. So if you think about like on a colour wheel, you know, what are the opposing kind of colours that you'd find on there? Well, you know, certainly even just looking on this wheel here, you can see, you know, these contrast quite well, the blues and the pinks. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to move the lighting over to something like that, to pink. Not too much, I don't want it solid pink. Something like with a pink tinge. Do that. I'm going to move that over there. Now, you can bring another light in, you can just click and drag another line, but because, in particular, because I've been playing around with the intensity and the attenuation radius, why not just clone this and then just change the colour, right? So, you know, let's make life easy for ourselves. So I'm going to hold down Alt, click and drag, and now I've duplicated that light. So obviously it's still pink. We'll move it over to this side now. This one I'm going to make blue. I'm going to drag that over, and you can see that kind of contrast now. We've kind of got that cold and that kind of warm pink kind of feel. And we can play around with some of the intensity on this. So for example, bump that up a little bit on that, go over to the pink light, bump it up a little bit on that. Yeah, looking good. And then you can sort of play around. I can maybe drag another light in there for the that little kind of alcove, and yeah, just really have a play. It's the only way that you'll kind of really get to grips with this is by having a play. Let's put, like I say, green on that or something like that. And let's play around with the intensity as well. And yeah, just dot some of these things around. Yeah. I'm going to hold down Alt, bring that over there, say. Maybe play around with the intensity. Cool. Let's have a look at that. I'm going to go to play, hit F11. So it's a start, you know, in terms of, like, you know, if you wanted to kind of block something out before you start kind of making your assets for the game, why not just spend a bit of time, spend a day just kind of going around and playing around with some lighting, see what's going to work. Of course, even at this stage, what you can do is you can look at blocking something out, putting some lighting in Unreal, and then you can even export and put it into Unreal Engine. So if I hit, now let's have a look at this. It's been a while since I've played around with this, but if I were to say escape, there we go. If you come over to the left hand side here, you'll see a little drop down button, a little arrow. You click on that. It actually has a high resolution screenshot. So you click on that and you can, you know, play around with the sort of size of it, take a snapshot, and it will actually take a picture. It'll save it to the clipboard, and then you could it's either to the clipboard or to a folder, and then, you know, put it into Photoshop. You know, do a bit of photo bashing, work into it. It's probably the best way to work, to be honest, in terms of, like, you know, whether or not, you know, you're aiming to sort of do level design, or even, you know, do sort of models, environments. You know, it's a better way than just trying to just generate everything from photographs or even from imagination. Just get it in there. You know, treat this as a kind of as a sandbox, just to kind of start to get a feel about what you're playing with and what the possibilities are when you're creating you know, creating levels. So yeah, just something to bear in mind. Anyway, I'm gonna hit 11. So the scene's almost there. To sort of close with, what I'm going to do now is, and I've done this in another video before, is I'm going to look to, this is just purely just a bit of aesthetics really, is I'm going to put a sphere in here. I'm going to apply an emissive light in there. Again, it's just a stylistic thing really. So I'm going to go through to basic, click on sphere, I'm going to drag that in there, increase the size, like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply this anyway, so I'm just going to create one of them for now. I'm going to hit F, just make sure that that's sitting below the line. There we go. Something like that. So that's all looking good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through to, let's just go through to content. We could actually, we'll just do it here. I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to material. I'm going to call this emissive. Enter. Double click on this now. And in our materials editor, I'm going to go right click, type in constant. I'm going to right click, convert to parameter. I'm going to call this emissive. Right click again, go to constant again, but this time I'm going to go to constant vector 3. Right click and convert to parameter and call this color. Enter. It's lined up. And next I'm going to right click, I'm going to type in the word multiply. Should be able to see it there. Okay, and then we're going to connect these up. That one to B, that one to A, and this one to emissive color, like so. And then I'm going to click apply, save. Click off that. Next, I'm going to right click on the material and then create a material instance. I'm going to call this E underscore blue. Enter. And then when we've done that, we're going to go to E blue. double click on that. So this is where we're going to create the glow. So first of all, we need to click on color, and we want to be going for something like sort of bluish color. Now we can come back to this, but just to kind of just set it as a sort of blue color, something like that. And then next we want to go to where it says emissive. We want to click on that and click in the box, put in something like 50. There we go. So we've got our glow happening, although we've got a bit of a sort of pinkish tinge. I'm going to go back to color and let's just have a look and just see if we can have a bit of a sort of play around. So again, this is where you're going to have to use your own judgment. Obviously, the closer to the kind of center, the more of the kind of glow that you get, and obviously as you move it around, you'll get different tones of glow. We're sort of going for like a bluish tint. So yeah, so something like let's go something like that. It's kind of very kind of pale bluish kind of color. Click OK. I think we're ready to go. Go click save. Click off that. So come back now. You can see there in the little icon we've got a little glow, and then all we do is click and hold, drag it onto our object. Hey presto, we've got our sphere. Now, if you want to continue playing around with this, of course, and edit it, of course, by all means do. Just double click on it again, and you can play around with some of the parameters. In here, and things like the glow as well. If you want to have a play around with that. Let's take it back to 50. $60, so, and just do it that way. And with the color, again, if it's not blue enough, then change it around a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Click save. Always remember to click save. And go back. There we are. And then lastly, just to, again, this is just really just putting this some finishing touches. Hold down Alt. Just going to play around, reduce the scale of these, and just almost like these kind of scattered globes just kind of hanging around. So, but again, this isn't really essential. This is just me just kind of having a bit of a play, really. But it's nice just to kind of create like a scene, really, just for aesthetics. Okay. But that is pretty much it. I'll just go through to play now. Hit F11. There we are, we've got our spheres. And we've got our sky. So you can see there we've got our clouds moving, we've got the stars in the sky. There's no moon, or perhaps we'll do a tutorial on that. And we've got our little scene, and these are the kind of the beginnings, really, of when you're kind of building up a scene. How to kind of lay it out. Think of it being a bit like a sort of stage. You're laying out a stage for the actors. So it's like, what's that going to look like? What kind of control are you going to have? Because essentially, with stuff like this, not only are you the art department, but also you're the film crew, so to speak. You're the cameraman, camera person. You're the DOP, and it's it's looking right. I think that's pretty much it, really. If you've got any questions, anyway, certainly send me a message. But apart from that, hopefully you found this video enjoyable. And until next time, folks, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye for now.
you.